All right, y'all. Let's jump in with Bag J, the MT48 2.0 build today. Looks like it's going to be the other side pod, some radio stuff. We probably won't use that. Sorry. There's a radio tray, battery tray. Nice aluminum servo horn. Used to be the Tekno kits came with plastic servo horns, and you had to buy a separate aluminum one. It's always a pain in the butt because the plastic ones lasted all of 5 minutes, and I'm not kidding. Like, the plastic ones were fairly useless. Plastic servo horns are not your friend. Battery strap. All right. Where do we go, Bag J? Tell me. So, we're going to put this tray on next. We're going to run big 4S packs. So, let's see. How does this put the strap? Install the strap as shown in the image. Do this before moving to the next step. So I'm going to put 4S batteries. I think it's the whole tray, right? Let's see. Yeah, the whole tray. So actually, that's the wrong hole to use. I need to use these holes on the outside. So if you're going to use smaller packs, use these other holes. But for me, I'm going to put 4S packs in this boy. So we'll use the holes for the 4S packs. And that should, yeah. Good. Okay. Where do we want it? Like there? There. Okay. So that's that. Refer to the wiring diagram. Yep. We do have a receiver. This is a Fly Sky. It's actually, we typically use for nitro cars, but I run it in electric. I don't think we'll need this. Wow, there's a lot going on in this image. We're gonna have to figure it all out the hard way, I suppose. It looks like that'll set there. This wire will run back to the box here. And this box will hold the receiver. Oh, what's interesting is we also have to figure out a way to route this ESC wiring back as well. It's maybe the same line, and then have it come into the servo tray or the receiver tray under here, like that. All right, and then it should sit on top of these that I think we have some clips to hold the wires down onto. It should look like that, right? I think this is the way. Let's see. So, looks like all these screws thread into the chassis. And then they do, indeed. Okay. And these are all really small, short, stubby M4s. Kind of interesting. Some thread lock on. Oops. Very interesting. I'm not used to this. A little different. I feel like the old monster truck had a similar kind of setup to it for the side guards, but it's been a while. Like I said, once I get this thing built, I'll bring in my MT410 1.0 and we'll do a little compare and contrast. That MT410 1.0 was basically an 8 scale monster truck. What a thing it was. Great truck. This one should be even better. We'll see. Oh, oops. That wire caught under there. Okay. These other screws seem to go through the Velcro. Have I done this wrong? I've done this wrong. I've done this wrong. I've done this wrong. You're probably shouting at me. Hey, idiot. Doofus. You're doing it wrong. That's why we're Doofus's bench. So, well, that needs to come out. This needs to come back out. And I need to route it this way. And then, wow. So it goes down the side, back up through the bottom, then down through here, through the bottom, and then back up on the outside. So then I should be able to pull these back and get to those screw holes. Tricky. Okay. And I do want to run these into the receiver tray before I put it on. It looks like it's going to be a little bit of a challenge to get these wires into that tray once the box is on the car. So we'll try to make that easy for ourselves. These ones already have Loctite on them. Yeah, now I can make slack there to put these ones in. How many screws can I lose today? All the screws. We can lose all the screws today. Bearings, you name it. Just drop all the things on the floor. Okay, so that gets those little guys in. And then I need to do some things with some smaller screws that'll go into the chassis plate, it looks like. Those are going to be 2. They are going to the chassis plate, so they will need some Loctite. There's one up here behind the bell crank again. And then one at the back here. Is that the wrong screw? Oh no. There it goes. Then these should get clipped in by a clip. Looks like these small plastic pieces here kind of sit on top and hold the wires in. Like that. Oops. Oh. Yeah. Then I guess these should feed alongside of there maybe, but I don't want them there. I think that would cause some friction and rub, and I don't really want that. So let's leave those out. They won't hurt there. And pull that tight. All right. Well, what do we do next? Looks like there's a couple of screws that might come up from the bottom. Where? Or did we get them all? This one. That one. And it looks like our wires might be right in the way. Yeah. So the wires actually covering that hole. What's supposed to go in there? Nothing. Just a screw. Interesting. Oh. second of these clips. Yeah, this one goes. Oh, I see. They're recessed on the side. I should have run it in the other way. Oh well. Okay. Receiver. They say 1 to turn, 2 to burn. So this will be channel 1, and negative goes that direction. Channel 2 is your speed controller, negative that direction. So that takes care of our speed controller. And I have to put something on here, maybe. I don't really like that. I like to leave the wire inside. Let's see if we can get away with that. Just leave the wire inside the box and not let it out. The antenna wire. Yeah. That looks like our tray pretty well built and mounted. So let's move on to J3. That'll be steering link to the servo. This guy. These have a hex on one end, so you can use the hex end to drive in the threaded rod to one end, and then you'll come back and turn the other one on by hand. Just right on top of it. And it's all right-handed thread, so you just turn it all on. And they tell you to leave a 1 millimeter gap between the ends. That's a good starting point. I like myself to leave the gap to start, and then I'll get it on the car and get everything, you know, get the receiver connected and all that good stuff, the radio connected, and then figure out where it really needs to be. You know, adjust it to where it needs to be, not what they say. Right? Those should be free once they're in there. Next, we'll go through the servo horn, it looks like. There should be a countersunk screw. Yep. And that'll come through a washer. And then our steering link. And then a flange nut to button that all up. So it'll be 2.0. And then next we'll go onto the screw that we placed earlier, and it calls for a washer there. I'll tell you that you should line up so the arm stays pretty level throughout the throw. Let me make sure that servo is kind of centered. Yeah. That's kind of center. And what I mean is this sort of angle that link follows. This should actually be pretty even with the servo horn. So I'll put washers to bring that up a little bit. And you can just use, regular old M3 washers, nothing too fancy, if you have them. I have some washers, nothing too exciting, but they should work. Or not, they don't fit. Yeah, no, that doesn't fit. I don't know what those washers came from. Not much good to me. I've got a Delrin spacing. I'll just put one of those. We'll put a Delrin spacer there. We'll call that jerry-rigged. That looks nice. And this one gets the flange nut, and the bottom of the screw should be held by the bell crank. So when you tighten down, it should hold it for you. You shouldn't have to hold the bottom part of the screw. Then we need a screw for the top of the servo. They do not give you one as part of the kit. You do have to kind of source your own. Any kind of M3 cap head is ideal. You will need some Loctite for sure. Some thread lock. And like I said, run it back out, run it back in. Crank it down pretty good. It should stay nice and tight. Now, so, again, I'm trying to get this more level than it kind of was. But throughout the throw, you can see it kind of stays pretty well tied together. And then from here, we just need to place the receiver box lid, and that should be us good to go. We will need to bind this at some point. We'll get to that. For now, I'll just button it up a little bit, and I'll add some foam and things like that to it later. Oh, this goes on this way. Yep. Yeah. 3 screws to hold the radio box on. Per usual. The race kits have 3 screws to hold the radio box lid on too. However, they are it's a little bit different box, and it's on the other side. There is one last piece left, and that is there's a small set screw that you use in the receiver box if you're using the wire and the tube. And so let me show you what that looks like in the case that you want to actually run that way. It's very simple. You'll take your receiver box off. Your wire you can actually run in this little slot right in the side of the box, and then you'll put it in your tube, in your radio tube, and you can cut this down to size if you like. Oh man, how do I get that to start in there? And go there. So you'll run this wire through your radio tube, then you run it into that slot. You put your radio tube into that hole, and you'll run this set screw right down the side of that radio tube, and that'll lock that radio tube in. So you'll see there's a hole right to the side of the radio tube. So there's 2. There's one for the radio box lid, and the one right to the side of the tube that locks the tube in. Like I said, I'm not going to use that, so that grub screw will just be in my extra parts area there. Unless I feel like I need to put the wire in the tube, I'm just going to leave it the way it is for now. And then like I said, I'll put some foam and things like that in the receiver box to make sure that it, everything stays together nice. Doesn't get bounced around and slapped, and wires can come undone and all kind of things like that. All right. With that, that's bag J done. Keep an eye out for bag K. It's coming up next. Make sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.